Cllr Ian Cruise, thank you for speaking to Labour Lives. I want to ask you some questions around the departure of Mark Rogers, the former Chief Executive Officer of Birmingham City Council, who will be retiring on the 28th of February from his post. How did you first hear about this?
I first received, through the medium of text message from a former colleague of mine on the Labour group, who'd read a story on the Chamberlain Files blog saying that Mark was leaving Birmingham City Council. So again, they picked that up off the Chamberlain Files, not from an internal email from the City Council, which you probably would expect the council to do, notifying councillors there's going to be a change of chief executive.
So that surprises you, not only as a councillor, but as someone who keeps his ear fairly close to the ground as well about what's going on in the city.
Yeah, I would say that, and I've got to be honest with you, when you kind of hear through the grapevine of something as serious as a chief executive of the largest city council, or the largest council within Europe, leaving, you'd expect a formal communication to come out sooner rather than later. But I'm kind of sort of, say, shocked but not surprised that it came through the medium of a blog or a website or the internet.
And then it came out into social media, and there was a lot of debate, including some people who felt fairly outraged about it.
Yeah, there was a lot of people who were fairly outraged about it, and they were fairly outraged about it across the political spectrum. One, that the chief exec was going. Two, there was no formal reason why he was leaving the council. And I think thirdly, and most importantly, the actual mechanism at which the story broke and the communication came forward. You've got to realise that the story broke on Saturday night. I received a text at 11:15. I read the Chamberlain Files straight after, and then I woke up next morning and there was still no communication from the council. It took until Sunday evening for a communication from the leader's office to tell us that Mark was leaving his post.
And there were two quotes in that, both of them expressing thanks for the work that he'd done and his enjoyment of being the Chief Executive Officer. We then move on during the week as this moves apace. And what happened then, as far as you know? Did you receive any further information as a councillor?
We were asking questions. Again, there was opposition councillors to the administration. I'm aware of Labour councillors that were asking questions, and myself about what was happening next, who was going to be taking Mark's role as chief executive on an acting basis. And it took until, I believe it was Wednesday, for another communication to come from the leader's office. I think this was copied into all the staff in the City Council as well, actually saying that Mark Rogers was on annual leave and his replacement would be another officer of the City Council. So we've gone from him leaving the council on the Sunday, or the Saturday night, to Wednesday when he was on annual leave. So we were kind of like, well, is he on leave? Is he still with the council? What's happening here? And at this stage, a number of councillors, there were 6 of us who petitioned the Lord Mayor for a special meeting so we could actually find out what was going on. And
that was rejected?
It was rejected initially, not by the Lord Mayor, but by our Chief Legal Officer for, saying that the leader says he doesn't need to have a meeting about this, when actually it's the Lord Mayor we're petitioning, and the Lord Mayor is the only person who can rule yes or no. And the outcome of that was he said no, unfortunately.
And who were the signatories to that
the signatories led by Councillor Matt Bennett, the Conservative group, Timothy Huxtable, Councillor Gary Sambrook, myself, Councillor John Hunt, and Councillor Valerie Seabright of the Labour group, because we were sort of adamant that we needed to have this question and answer session with the leader. I suggested that we actually have a private meeting of the City Council where I was no press, no public, and we had the leader give us a full and frank statement of exactly what went on, the decisions that led to either the removal or the...
A nice idea, but unlikely to remain private, given the febrile nature of Birmingham politics, was it?
Yeah, I mean, you only got to see certain private meetings when I was in the Labour group to understand that probably wouldn't happen. However, I think out of courtesy to the departing chief executive, you will probably find that it would be a very, very, very small minority of councillors that would probably leak any information from that. But that would then give the opposition and also Labour councillors in the controlling group a chance to ask the questions that I think need answering about what led up to the departure. Was it forced by government? If not, what happened? Whose decision was it? What's the succession plan going to be? And nothing has been forthcoming. And it's interesting as well that the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Alden, who has regular meetings with the Leader of the Council, and had one last week, alarmingly, the Leader refused to discuss this issue with the Leader of the Opposition. He didn't want to talk about it, which I find...
And that's come directly from the Leader of the Conservative group to you?
The Leader of the Conservative group communicated it across the whole of the councillors' email addresses. It wasn't just to the six of us who put the petition in.
Right.
It was a case that, we're trying to get this petition forward to have this special meeting. It wasn't happening. The Lord Mayor actually said no. And, we accept that. The way that was communicated was a bit conspicuous as well. Basically, it wasn't the email didn't come from the Lord Mayor's office. It come from the office of the Chief Legal Officer, who said that they were speaking on behalf of the Lord Mayor. And I'm not going to dispute that because it might sort of be libelous if I did. But it was communicated through the leader of the opposition to all councillors that Councillor Clancy said that he didn't want to talk about the Mark Rogers situation, which, when you've got the leader and the leader of the opposition in a meeting, you think that would be top of the list, considering that the chief exec is something that's installed on a cross-party basis.
They were having delicate, presumably, negotiations between the parties. So would you really expect the leader to be having that conversation with his opposition?
I think that, part of me understands why the leader didn't have that conversation with Councillor Alden. However, on the flip side, I think important business such as that, information should be released to the Leader of the Opposition that's not sensitive to any negotiations that are going on. Now, to me, if he's not going to have a public meeting, a special meeting of the City Council, there still needs to be some further information that comes out. So, again, the chronological timeline about what led up to Mark Rogers leaving the City Council is one of the things that we should all be asking the question about, because there is obviously some background reason why Mark went.
That you don't know about, and that none of the council know about, apart from perhaps one or two senior members of the Labour group.
I would say that, yeah. There are probably that select few people who know exactly what's gone on, who will be swore to secrecy and they won't be able to tell.
And of course,
anybody.
Interestingly enough, various members of the council then went onto social media to give their views, and then surprisingly, they received an email. What's this email that came to not just the Labour group, but to all councillors?
All councillors except me originally.
Not to you then?
No, I received the email third party through the Leader of the Opposition because he didn't feel that I was getting any communication whatsoever. And I think people forget that.
So 119 councillors were emailed and advised from the legal officer, but you were excluded.
Yeah.
But you did see this email subsequently.
Yeah.
It was forwarded on to you by Councillor Alden.
Yeah.
This email, what in terms was it saying? Because nobody seems to have heard about it or know what its contents are. I don't think it's been published, has it?
It's not been published at present. I did make a comment on my Twitter feed about some of the comments from the Chief Legal Officer, and basically the email was addressed to the leaders of the three main political groups, and basically, and I use the term warned councillors because if you read the text, it is, you break it down into layman's terms, it is a warning. Warned councillors about their conduct and about the things they should and shouldn't be saying about the Mark Rogers situation. The reaction to that email from councillors was, let's just say, quite damning, because there have been no complaints put in by any persons, as far as I'm aware, about some of the things that have been posted on the social networks or on people's blogs or on websites or on email. And so basically we were being told to shut up, and if you don't, then you could end up in trouble. And that's exactly the way I've read the email. And for that to come out of the office of the Chief Legal Officer, when, yes, they're there to give us legal advice, but until we've actually had complaints come in about our conduct, shouldn't be telling us or warning us about our conduct when we've actually done nothing wrong, I find quite perplexing. And I actually did say it was an absolute disgrace. And it comes to something when the Lord Mayor-elect commented in 35 years she had seen or heard nothing of the sort.
So where do you lay the blame for the toppling of the Chief Executive Officer of Birmingham City Council?
My first thoughts were that there may have been some involvement from government. That was my first initial thought, because I can't perceive Mark Rogers just walking away from the council a week before the budget unless there's some personal issues that I'm unaware of. I can't see that happening. Mark would not drop Birmingham City Council in the mire like that. He, from what I gather, he enjoyed working for Birmingham City Council. He was very passionate about the job he did. Following on from that, the cynic in me says that if he's not been shoved from government, then he's been shoved internally for reasons around, and this is my own personal opinion, protection of individuals in the executive who complaints have been made against. And, I can't really elaborate on that.
Are you going to be taking this matter up further with the council?
I will be taking the matter up further with the council.
Publicly, there's a council meeting coming up this Tuesday. Will you be raising this in open council?
I think it needs to be raised in open council. If the Lord Mayor gives us the hour extension that's been requested to the council meeting on Tuesday, rather than have a full and frank meeting about this, then we will get that chance. If we don't, I would expect, firstly, one of the main opposition parties to raise this as a matter of urgent business, because they can actually do that. When it comes to the budget and the items on the agenda, there is nothing stopping me from raising questions around, one, the Chief Executive going, secondly, around, and they won't tell me how much his severance package will be, if any severance package is being paid. And then thirdly, you've got the on costs of pension strain, etc., and the cost of the council. Those questions do need asking. And those are some of the things, obviously, when we're looking at the corporate reserves, where that money will come from. We need to know if that's actually going to come from there or another part of the budget line. So the questions do need asking.
Thank you, Councillor Cruise.
Thank you.